TG Geeks, episode 399, October 10th, 2022. Only the Shadow Mark knows. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the two gay geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery, sci-fi, comics, film, horror genre, you name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane. We're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely Phoenix, Arizona, where the monsoon is never ending.
I know. Yeah.
It's still going on.
I know.
October.
I know. Yeah. And I'm Ben Raggington, coming to you from a very rainy and humid Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah, let's get on with this.
Prepare for hyperdrive.
Meanwhile, in the Hall of Episodes, the two gay geeks are discussing this.
The sound didn't want to launch there, even though I pressed it 3 times. This time we're talking to Mason Thomas, who has written the book The Shadow Mark. Was released a couple of years ago, but we also had Marc Biagi, who is doing the audiobook, and they have a Kickstarter. So Mason is going to tell us about the book, and then Mark is going to tell us about the audiobook and have our birthday shout outs that we're going to breeze through because we got a lot of interview that we had there, and a sound file or a clip of Mark doing some of the voices and some of the narration for the Shadow Mark audiobook. So please stay tuned after the interview portion, and we'll play that for you. We're going to have our featured podcast of the week, have some feedback, our shout outs, probably not going to get to the second segment.
Not likely.
And then we have our wacky weekly recap and our regular shout out. So we're just going to get right to it here. And on our show today, we have a real treat for you. We have somebody that's returning to our show.
The third gay geek.
The third gay geek, Marc Biagi. And he is also here with Mason Thomas, who is an author. And Mark is going to be doing some voiceover for the audiobook for Mason's book. And now that I've given you a little teaser there, we'll start in the interview portion. Welcome, Mason and Mark.
Hi, thank you.
Yes.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah.
Hi, guys. Great to be back, and really excited to share with you what we're working on.
Absolutely. So, Mason, we're going to start with you. And give us a little bit of a background of who you are, how you kind of got into writing, and a little teaser for this book that you are about to release, or the audiobook that is coming out for the book that I assume it's already been released. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's already been released. It's been released for a couple of years. I have been writing pretty much my whole life. As a kid, and I started with this grand Game of Thrones epic style novel that I thought the industry wanted, and it was absolutely terrible, and it was just convoluted and awful. And a friend gave me advice to put that on the shelf and just sit down and write my next one. So that's what I did, and so I started writing books about gay characters. I wanted to write books that I wanted to read, so I started writing fantasy stories that had gay protagonists in them. And my first book, Lord Mouse, is the one that I finished, and that was the first one that was picked up. This is the second book called The Shadow Mark, and it is a standalone story. It's the same world. There's a little bit of overlap in some of the details, but it is definitely a standalone story. And it follows the story. It follows the story of Ark and Kane, who are on an adventure together. Arik is a former military commander that is wanted for murder, and he's on the run. And he befriends a young country tanner. He's lost his parents. He's kind of on his own. He's being helped out by a friend, an older friend, and they're also on the run, being chased by assassins. Arik decides that he is going to protect Kane and figure out why he is being chased by these assassins.
Very interesting. I'll have to say, on your website, there is somebody drew a a caricature of Mouse.
Oh my God,
this scruffy looking.
Oh, he's hot.
Yeah,
he's hot. That's hot.
Mouse,
without going into anything more salacious.
I described him as a pocket top, and he drew him perfectly. I think that really fits exactly his vibe. I think it's great.
Yeah, I took a look at it and my eyes popped down. I went, "Oh, hello, baby."
Yeah, I think he captured him pretty darn well.
Cool.
I'm kind of still stuck on when you said, you're working on when you did your first story and you called it, you wanted to this epic like Game of Thrones type story, and then you said, but people said it was too convoluted, and you shelved it, and I thought, and Game of Thrones isn't?
Exactly.
That's the fair point.
Yeah. So did that book did it feature gay characters as well, or?
It didn't. I was trying to be more mainstream and just kept it with all straight characters. I didn't have any LGBTQ characters at all.
Interesting.
In that work. And to be honest, looking back, I wasn't really happy with the story because of that, and it wasn't authentic to me. It wasn't authentic to me as a writer, as an author. And I really found the joy when I started to write characters that reflected me and were characters that I wanted to read, that I would have enjoyed when I was younger.
Right.
I was going to say that
my books are adult, but I wanted to be true to that.
Yeah, cool. I was going to make the comment that by not writing the kind of book that you yourself would want to read, maybe that was the reason that first book didn't come off so well.
And it got messy, and
I completely agree.
Because
it was trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, and I as soon as I discovered writing what I wanted to write, it really sparked a joy and a passion in me about presenting strong gay characters on the page in a speculative environment, and which I feel was at the time and still is greatly lacking. And there's a lot more authors doing this today, but I couldn't find very many books at the time when I wrote it. So when it got picked up, I was really excited about the prospect of presenting strong gay characters in speculative fiction. I thought that was something that was kind of a dream that coming to reality for me.
Yeah,
cool.
I think that's why we've had conversations with Katie Edwards a couple of weeks ago. Last week we spoke to David Slayton, and this seems to be the universal response, is that writing the kind of books that you wished you could have read when you were younger. That seems to be the universal characteristic as to why these stories are successful in of themselves, because you're writing as your authentic self.
Yeah. And
that's right.
And also the just recently, with Katie Edwards, David Slayton, you, and Scott Coatsworth, and others that I don't even know about yet. I would say probably in less than 10 years, to be writing urban fantasy, epic fantasy, those types of things with gay protagonists, as you said, it has become the thing. And I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. It didn't exist except for something here and there. So I think it's great that it's a genre.
And when I was first picked up by a publisher that focused on male romance, and my book does have romance in it. It's not the forefront of the story. It is part of the story, because in a world, people do fall in love and have relationships. And
really,
but I didn't want the fantasy to be a backdrop for that. I wanted the fantasy to be a part of the story as well. So I had since left that publisher because I don't really think that my stories really qualify as strictly romance. I wanted them to be show characters that have relationships, that have gay experiences, but also are populating this fantasy world.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I just want to go back to your first novel again. And
Yeah.
have you picked anything out of that? What did you learn from that has helped in writing your future novels? Have you used any plot points, et cetera, like that?
That's a fascinating question. Writing that first novel, writing Lord Mouse, was my first book. Going back to that, took me like 6 to 8 years, somewhere in there, to actually complete the full novel from beginning to end. I sat down and wrote Lord Mouse in a window of 8 months.
Wow.
It's considerably shorter, but it was knowing. I knew who Mouse was immediately. I understood him right from page one. I understood who he was as a character, and it not to be cliche, but it did in some way like write itself. And because I was speaking from an authentic point of view, and I understood him, and I think what I learned from that first novel is precisely that, is to speak with authenticity, speak with characters that are true to the gay experience. And when I sat down to write The Shadow Mark, same thing. When I sat down to write Auric, I knew who he was right out of the gate as well. I understood him. He's very different than Mouse, much more serious, much more stoic, just brooding and crabby in some respects. But I knew who he was right out of the gate, and knowing that character, knowing his authentic experience as a gay man in this fantasy world, which can be violent and has magic, really propelled the story. And I loved writing The Shadow Mark in the sense that I got to really put Auric and Cain through the paces, much more than I did in my first book. Mouse was always one step ahead of everybody, where Auric, they were always 2 steps behind, and they were always trying to fight their way to stay above water through the entire experience. And they get pretty badly beat up throughout the story, and I loved that experience of just seeing how far I could push them.
Interesting.
I have a question.
He has a question that he generally asks most authors.
So, first, how long were these characters living in your head?
Mouse was existing in my head for some time before. I always wanted to have sort of that anti-hero, spiky troublemaker as main character, as the protagonist in a story. And I liked the idea that he goes by Mouse because he's really small. He's actually very small in stature, often gets mistaken for somebody in his youth because he's so small. And that ends up taking everybody off guard, because he's an incredible fighter. He's incredibly clever, and again, always one step ahead of everybody. So I love that idea of somebody that isn't this hulking figure being the hero, that somebody that is small in stature, but can still take you down in a fight by using his intelligence, not so much brute strength. So that is somebody that I always wanted to play with as a character. Auric existed less so, more like when I sat down to write him, I knew what I wanted him to be, and he did flesh out as I started to write him, but he didn't occupy too much real estate in my brain too long before I started writing it.
Okay, so the question becomes then, did obviously these characters had their own voice at some point to where you easily recognize this is Mouse, this is Eric, etc. Did at any time did the characters become so alive in your head that they hijacked where you were going with the story?
That happens quite often. Yeah. especially with Mouse. Mouse
Can see that.
he hijacked the story quite a bit, where like I wanted him to behave a certain way, and he went, nope, I have other plans, and it kept sidetracking the story, derailing it, and I had to keep figuring out a way to get it back to where I wanted it to end up, because just knowing who he is, once I got into a scene and once I was in the moment, his behavior took over. His behavior and his personality really informed me how the story was going to go from that point. There are sometimes I tend to be a bit of a pantser. I'm not so much of a plotter. I do some plotting as far as characters and plot points that I need to hit, but as far as where the story goes, I sort of let the dog off the leash and let it go.
Because
he was one that just constantly surprised me with his behavior, and it often was just being contrary.
Because two different examples. One author, Katie Edwards, that we mentioned earlier, there was one story that he was working on, and he couldn't get it to work. And meantime, he kept saying he kept hearing the voice of his main protagonist in the background saying, "Hello, I'm here. Let me in on this scene." And Katie's like, "No, I don't want you in on this." And it's like, "Let me in on this scene." So we finally said, "Okay, fine, Rune, you're in on the scene." And then the chapter wrote itself. Right. And then another author, Jeannie Koch, she was working on one of her big multiple volume series. And she got stuck at a certain point because she wanted the story to go this way. And her main protagonist, Kitty, kept saying, "No, that's not what I would do. I would do this." And Jeannie said, "We actually had an argument. We had an argument about, no, you would not." And Kitty said, "Yes, I would do that." So fine, said, "Okay, fine. Kitty, you do it." Kitty does it her way, and then she was able to finish the book.
He definitely informed me in the scene what he was going to do, and I tended to step out of the way and let him decide, which seems weird and passive, but I let him dictate to me what his responses were going to be, and he was always right. The way the story would go was really informed by his personality and his behavior.
Isn't it interesting that the characters we create know their roles better than the people who create them?
Correct. Yeah, it is really interesting. And I've learned over the course of my writing career, if I don't know what the scene is going to be, if I'm getting close to a scene and I'm anxious about, I don't know where it's going to go, for me, it's important to just get out of my own way and let the scene happen, because my subconscious has already solved that problem.
Right.
Interesting.
And as I step into the scene, it just happens. I know where it ends up going.
So you have said this book, The Shadow Mark, has been released. When was it released? You said It
was originally released in 2019 2017. I apologize. It originally came out in 2017 through my former publisher. I've since left that publisher, and now I have gone through the process of re-releasing them digitally. They're available in Kindle, and now I have them in print form again, and I'm getting them back on Amazon, and I'm getting them on store shelves as well, both locally here in Chicago and on some other gay bookstores around the country.
Oh, cool. And so one of the reasons that we're talking to you here, we don't want to forget that Marc's joined us here. Marc sitting there, kind of just twiddling his thumbs. I did want to say, I noticed that your number one critic is Phoebe. So on your website, is that your kitty cat? Mason? Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry, me? Oh, yeah. Phoebe is, I'm sorry. Yes, Phoebe is my number one critic.
Yes. Is that your cat, or is that just...
It is my cat, yeah. She is a rag doll, very furry, very vocal, yells at me all the time.
Of course.
Whenever she wants something. So, yeah, she's... my Wi-Fi in my house is Darth Phoebe, and that kind of just sums her up.
Wow, that's easy to remember.
We have 4 cats, so we have 2 males and 2 females. One is a 22-pound black panther.
Oh my gosh.
He is enormous. Anyway.
Yeah, Phoebe's only like 8 pounds, but she's mighty.
Yeah. So we have Marc here because you have just, as of October 1st, started a Kickstarter for, you want to chat about that? Tell us about that?
Absolutely. I've arranged with Mason to give voices to his book, The Shadow Mark. So we're doing an audiobook adaptation, and well, it's not really an adaptation. We're not changing any of the text. It's all the text. But we are recording that now. Kickstarter has been begun for that. Already recording stuff, and it's been a fun adventure. Actually, Mason and I met at Comic-Con at a bar, just relaxing in between stuff, and started up a conversation. And what do you do? What do you do? Are you here as a fan and everything? And we had a lot of crossover in terms of our fandom and interests, but when he started talking about the types of books that he writes, and I was very fascinated by the idea, because that's something, as we've talked about, I would have loved to have read a lot more as a younger guy. And being a gay man, it's like I love seeing characters that represent me in stories. So it kind of was a really good meeting of minds, and a good combination of our interests and talents, and so we touched bases after Comic-Con, and Mason sent me a copy of some samples, and we got together, and I gave him some ideas. I read the whole book, and here we are, and it's been very exciting. I'm really loving doing it. I've been a voice actor for several decades, but I'm new. This is my premiere in the audiobook world, which is a little bit different, because we have to also do all the production side in general, not always. That's a very top tier. They have other engineers often do that work for you, but I'm not just recording it, I'm producing it and everything else. So, but as a character voice actor, it's really exciting to be able to give life to all in a new way to all these characters in the stories, because I was hooked when I read just the samples he sent, but then when I read the book, I really fell in love with the 2 main protagonists and their journey, and they have amazing story arcs. They're 2 very different men who their paths cross in an unusual way, and through circumstance are kind of forced together, but then really grow together at the same time and complement each other actually quite well. So it's there's so much to the story, and it's been very exciting. There's action, there's adventure, there's magic, there's intrigue, there is fighting, there is romance. So there's all sorts of different elements in it that make for good storytelling. And one of the things I love about Mason's writing is I could hook very quickly into who the characters were, and had a good sense for what I thought they should sound like, how the world kind of works, and really his dialogue really gave a clear understanding of what makes these characters tick, which is always, as an actor, a great hook for you to get into those characters and really give them a life with some verisimilitude.
Yeah. So the Kickstarter is Kickstarter, and It looks like that there's 24 backers, and there are 53 days to go. So you're well on your way. You're almost a quarter of the way there, which is a good thing.
Yeah. I'm very, very happy with progress so far.
Yeah, I was surprised that you didn't have some higher levels of
rewards?
pledges, not necessarily rewards, but pledges. The $36 is the highest, and of course I over exceeded that. But it was because I'm accustomed to giving that kind of money to a Kickstarter, and So it was just a natural thing. I want to see it succeed.
Yes,
For
absolutely.
all of you.
I'm so thankful for you believing in this.
Yeah, and we'll certainly promote the heck out of it. And
So thankful.
Well, and we also think it was a great idea to be able to make it affordable to people too.
Right,
So it's easier
exactly.
for people to contribute. Maybe we even have levels that are low for people to build micro contributions and stuff. But if someone did want to do a big donation, there is that
Go right
donation
ahead.
button where you can put an amount in, and they can put some extra in there too. So
Exactly.
at that top layer, what's important too is not only are we voicing the entire the Shadowmark novel, Mason's written 3 tales, which are short stories that take place in that same universe with different characters. And it's an exclusive offer to the Kickstarter that's being offered to people only there, so it won't be sold outside of that. And they go into those different tales, and they're really explore some very different aspects of the world than you get into with the Shadowmark. They really kind of flesh it out, and they're really wonderful stories too, each in their own way and quite different from each other.
cool. And we have a
sample.
audio clip from that we will play after the interview portion. It's just easier to insert it at that point. So please,
Sure.
once after we complete this interview, please
Stay
continue to
tuned.
listen, and then there will be a clip from the Shadowmark that Mark has. Are you the Mark of the Shadowmark?
Oh,
Mark?
bum.
Wrong spelling.
I was going to say that. He spelled it wrong.
But that's okay. No, it's yes, I am the Shadowmark and more.
And more. You are the shadow. Beware of the shadow.
Okay. With that, and we're sadly we're up against the time.
Yeah.
So
oh my
let-
gosh, we are.
So let me start with Mason. Mason,
Sure.
do you have a social media presence or a website by which people? Well, we talked about a website, but how can people learn more about you?
I have a website. It's masonthomasbooks.com. I am frequently on Twitter, which is masonthomas999, and I am attempting to infiltrate TikTok as well, which is author Mason Thomas on there. You can find me on TikTok now and get to see my face and hear my voice.
And your books, you said they're available pretty much anywhere right now, like Amazon.
Yes.
Place like okay, coolness. And Mark, what about you?
Yeah, well, I'm available through my website as well, which is Marc with a C, not with a K, Biagi, BIAGI.com. And I link to all my social media there. But interestingly, Mason and I kind of balance each other out on social media presence because I'm much more of a Facebooker. And I'm doing more with my official Facebook page and also starting to delve into the Instagram world. So I have some presence in both of those. But my website links to all of my stuff, including a lot of fun demos online and in my IMDb credits and all sorts of stuff. But you can always get the most recent news of what's going on in my world there. And both of our sites are also linked through the Kickstarter. And we have 3 different samples, by the way, of not just the audio you'll hear today at the end of this interview, but in the Kickstarter, we also have a sample, an action sample from the Shadowmark that you won't hear today, but it's up there, and a sample from the Ode to Gamdosa, which is one of the 3 tales that is an extra level in the Kickstarter and an exclusive offering there.
Yep. And
Coolness.
also, if you want to hear Mark do one of his voices, just stay tuned and you'll hear him. We've almost worn that one out. I may have to have you record it again because we use it in every episode.
Right on. Well, the other thing too, before we go, I did want to say that we made some concerted efforts to kind of separate the narration voice from the character voices in this. So narration is pretty much my voice. I mean, not so much what you're hearing now, a little bit more narratory. But it's acted out, and all the characters are acted out, and some of the characters are quite, they'll sound quite different from each other. I think you'll see I'm a multi-voiced voice actor, and we kept, since a lot of fantasy genres, people associate that with, British accents, Irish, Scottish, Australian, New Zealand. A lot of those accents that aren't English. It was not American English. We wanted to distinguish the narrator voice from the other characters because everything's done in third person. Yeah. So it makes the characters stand out a little bit better that way as well.
Yeah, I did hear the Scottish and the Irish in there for sure. Mason, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, no, that's okay.
Going to ask Mason if there was anything, any last thing that he wanted to say before we wind up here.
Only that I have been so impressed with Marc's work as an author and having somebody put to voice their words. I'm just over the moon with his instincts and his ability to just intuit the scenes the way I envision them and envision how these people sound and express themselves. He's been nothing short of phenomenal in terms of bringing my characters to life in a way that is, like I've said, he's reached into my brain and brought these people to life in a way that I could not have hoped for anything greater.
Great.
You made it easy with your narrative as well as your dialogue. It's all there. So, which made it very easy as an actor to go in and do that. But I appreciate the compliment, and I have to compliment Mason as well because his writing is so good that it was able to draw me in that way and really give me a very firm understanding for the world and the characters. So I'm looking forward to everybody being able to share in that experience with us.
Yeah, exactly the same. I can't wait for everybody to hear this story. And it's been years, I've been wanting this to happen. So to see it becoming a reality has been just a complete joy.
Cool. Go to the Kickstarter, back it. And thank you both for being on the show, Marc and Mason. And
100% our pleasure.
All right.
He wasn't sure why, but despite his own reservations, he found himself compelled to agree to Old Tan's offer. Less for himself and more for them. A vision of the two of them alone on the road was unsettling, especially considering the highwaymen he'd encountered earlier. They would be easy targets.
"It is always better to travel with others when you can," Auric said. "I will join you tomorrow."
He looked directly at Kane.
"As long as all are in agreement."
Kane held Auric's gaze for several moments, as if trying to gauge his character. "You travel by horse, sir. We will slow you down." His voice had a deep resonance that surprised Auric.
Auric shrugged. "I've no appointments at the moment, and I walk more than I ride anyway."
Kane's subtle lift of his eyebrows betrayed his skepticism about the truth of that.
"You seem decent folk," Auric added. "I would appreciate the company, I think."
"You know nothing about us." Auric felt the corner of his mouth lift a fraction.
"I know enough."
"And we know nothing of you."
"But we know enough,"
Old Tan put in gently. Kane glanced at Old Tan, then made a barely perceptible shrug of one shoulder. "Very well," he said, attempting an air of nonchalance. "If we'll not be inconveniencing you."
"Not at all,"
said Auric. Old Tan's grin widened.
"Well then, there it is. What a happy meeting this turned out to be, yes?"
The fire was dying down. Flames hugged closer to the wood and burned redder and tamer. The fragile cathedral of spent wood collapsed in on itself with a crackle. Auric reached over and grabbed another pine log from his meager pile and tossed it onto the flames. Bright sparks leaped into the air, riding the eddies of smoke.
"Sleep,"
Auric told them.
"I'll keep watch for now."
Old Tan's brow furrowed, and he looked as if he was on the verge of protest, but Auric cut it off before he could voice it.
"I'm not tired,"
he said. Old Tan looked like he wanted to argue, but Auric could see the fatigue winning over. After a long pause, he nodded. Kane glanced over at his master a moment, then turned his eyes back to Auric. "Wake me when you're ready. I will tend to the fire next." Auric replied with a nod. Old Tan wasted no time curling up on the ground in his cloak. Eyes closed, he fell into a steady rhythm of breathing almost immediately. Kane, on the other hand, spent time clearing away sticks and pebbles from his spot by the fire, smoothing the ground out with his hand. This was not someone accustomed to sleeping out under an open sky. He tried first to lie on his side, grunted, and moved onto his back. Arms folded over his chest, he closed his eyes. Arik leaned back, propping his torso up with his arms behind him, and stared into flames eating up the fresh wood. Then the ambush began.
Hi, this is Joe Spector from Arizona Opera, and you're listening to the Two Gay Geeks.
Well, we're going to breeze through some of these birthdays for October 10th, a few selected birthdays for October 10th through October 16th, 2022. Joe Green.
Better known as...
Oops. Autocorrect Americanized his name.
Yes.
Giuseppe Verdi, Italian composer known for his operas. He wrote quite a few operas, and he influenced Rossini, Donizetti, and Bellini. So just if you have an opportunity to listen to some Verdi operas, they're
fantastic.
The best. Exactly. Then we have Ed Wood, was an American filmmaker, actor, and pulp novel author.
His movies are fantastic. No, they're not.
Yeah. In the 50s, he directed low-budget science fiction, crime, and horror films.
Low budget.
That became, no budget, became cult classics. And some of his, notable for their campy aesthetics, technical errors, unsophisticated special effects, use of poorly matched stock footage, eccentric casts,
and
idiosyncratic stories, and non-sequitur dialogue. Wood's films remained largely obscure until he was awarded posthumously a Golden Turkey Award as the worst director of all time, renewing interest in his work. Michael Giacchino, American genius, American
Chameleon.
composer for films, television, video games. Oh my gosh, worked extensively with Pixar, among other filmmakers, and he's just a chameleon in what he can do and what he can write.
Yeah,
it's
just
amazing.
Got a directing assignment. He's going to be directing a movie, but I don't remember which one it was. I'm sorry.
Yep. October 11th, Matt Bomer, an American actor and producer. He's the recipient of accolades such as Golden Globe Award, Critics' Choice Award, and Primetime Emmy nomination.
Out gay man.
Out gay man, exactly. Dawn French, who is not an out gay man, but she likes gay men, so...
And gay men love her.
Exactly. British actress, comedian, presenter, and writer. French is known for writing and starring on the BBC comedy sketch French and Saunders with her best friend and partner Jennifer Saunders, and played the lead role as Geraldine Granger in the BBC sitcom The Vicar of Dibley.
Love that
you
show.
You can find that on BritBox as well as a couple of other places. Unbelievable. Incredibly funny. October 12th, Luciano Pavarotti, Italian operatic tenor who during the late part of his career crossed over into popular music, eventually becoming one of the most acclaimed and loved tenors of all times. He made numerous recordings and complete operas and individual arias, gaining worldwide fame for his tone and achieving the honorific title of King of the High Seas. Mm-hmm. Brian J. Smith, an American actor known for his role as Will Gorski in the Netflix produced series Sense8, and as well as Lieutenant Matthew Scott in the military science fiction television series Stargate Universe.
Out gay man.
Out gay man, exactly. It was his role in Sense8 that helped him
come out,
to decide that he was going to come out. And then we have friend of ours, Deborah Hildebrandt. Sorry about that. Happy birthday. October 13th. And I put him on here. Sacha Baron Cohen is an English actor, comedian, producer, and writer. Outrageous.
Nut job.
Nut job, best known for his creation of portrayal of fictional satirical characters, such as Borat, etc., etc. The reason I put him on here is he is quite the activist and outspoken critic of multiple things. Mm-hmm. So and it is very well spoken. I mean,
he's terribly intelligent.
Oh my gosh, there was an award that he was up for, and his acceptance speech was calling out several things, and it was an incredibly erudite exposition that he gave. Lily Langtry, you may have heard her name before. She was a British socialite, stage actress, and producer. She was the first socialite to appear on stage in the UK, and Langtry became a larger-than-life character because of her dalliances, her involvement in thoroughbred racing, and her land ownership in America. She owned land, actually, which was unheard of at that time for a woman. She traveled by private rail car and owned a winery in California that still, to this day, after she sold it, produces wine. She's been portrayed in numerous films, such as The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean, and she was probably an inspiration for other Western female performers. I'm thinking specifically an amalgamation of characters, but Lily Langtry was in there, of Lily von Stupp.
Of course.
And then we have friend of ours, Deanna Rash, happy birthday, and David Burkett,
happy
who've
birthday,
known
David.
forever. Happy birthday, David. October 14th, Ben Whishaw, English actor and producer. He has been in a number of things. He actually played Q in Skyfall and was the youngest actor to ever play Q in the Bond films. And he is in a civil partnership with Australian composer Marc Bradshaw.
Yes.
Harry Anderson. Oh my gosh.
I loved Harry. It was so sad when he passed.
American actor, comedian, and magician. He is best known for his role as Judge Harry Stone on the 1984 to 1992 television series Night Court. He later starred in the sitcom Dave's World. In addition to 8 performances on Saturday Night Live, Anderson had a recurring role as a con man, Harry the Hat Gitz, on Cheers.
Yep.
He toured extensively as a magician and did several magic comedy shows for broadcast, including Harry Anderson's Sideshow.
And his magic act was pretty warped.
Yep. And then good friend of ours, Mary Jean Starr. Happy birthday, Mary Jean. She was one of the first people that I met when I moved to Phoenix. October 15th, Emeril Lagasse, American celebrity chef, restaurateur, television personality, cookbook author, and National Best Recipe Award for his turkey and hot sausage chili recipe. James Beard Award winner, and he does a lot of Creole and Cajun cuisine that he self-developed in New Orleans style. He has Portuguese descent, and his mother side was of French heritage through his father. Been on a number of cooking programs and other things. His catchphrases are "kick it up a notch" and "bam." Yep. Penny Marshall was an American actress, director, and producer. She is known for her role as Laverne DeFazio. I loved Laverne on the television show Laverne and Shirley, and receiving 3 nominations for Golden Globe Best Actress and Television Musical Series for her portrayal. She made her directorial debut with Jumpin' Jack Flash before directing Big, which became the first film directed by a woman to gross over $100 million at the box office. And then we have a friend of ours, Annette Chavez.
Happy birthday.
October 16th, Oscar Wilde, Irish poet and playwright. After writing in different forms through the 1880s, he became one of the most popular playwrights in London in the early 1990s. Best remembered for his epigrams and plays, his novel The Picture of Dorian Gray, and circumstances of his criminal conviction for gross indecency for consensual homosexual acts, and one of the first celebrity trials, imprisonment, and early death from meningitis at age 46. There's an apocryphal story that he was at the Ascot with Queen Victoria, and he was eyeing the page boys, and the Queen says, "Oscar, darling, they count them before they put them out." Angela Lansbury, Irish, British, and American actress and singer who has played many film, theater, and television roles. with one of the longest careers in the entertainment industry. She is still going.
Yeah.
Her career has spanned over 80 years, and much of it in the United States. Her work has received much international attention, and she will be 97.
Wow.
Still going. And then we have friend of ours, Austin Sloan, Hector Alvarez, and Gilead Artist.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to everyone. And that's it for the birthdays this time.
Technorama, the podcast for geeks, because geeks are better than cool. You don't hear someone say, "Get away from me, you cool person." Who's gonna have their 65-inch home theater system installed by the Cool Squad?
Not me, that's for sure.
How much cool cred do you have? Not enough to care about. Think you'll find any canned unicorn meat at thinkcool.com? It's just a part domain name. They don't even have roadkill in a paper cup.
It's a real site
That's
now.
why you need to start listening to Technorama, because that's what geeks do. Go to chuckchat.com and listen to Technorama before you turn cool.
Go give a listen to our friends Chuck and Craig over at Technorama Podcast.
I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counselors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org.
Yes, it's time for our feedback. We are flying through this. These are comments that we received in response to articles that we ran on our website at tggeeks.com, and the links for each of these will be in the show notes for this episode, article number 399 at tggeeks.com, starting with, regarding Ben's breakdown, CocoCon 2022 Apocalypse Later Roadshow. We got a comment from Apocalypse Later, better known as Hal Estelle, the programmer of the festival. And he says, "Thanks, Ben." My pleasure. And then regarding the Bros Press Junket interview, got a comment from Will J. Foley. He left this for us on YouTube. He says, "Great interview. I really like the question about cliches and the answer he," meaning Billy Eichner, "gave about being free to do anything when no one is paying attention. I wasn't sure where I was going to go with the initial response because it did turn out to be a tough question, but it took the whole conversation to another level and made the interview really special. P.S. I would have asked the same thing probably, but not worded it as well. Will, you have made my day." Got a comment also from Lee Massey saying, "Thank you for joining us." She's the one who helped put this press junket for us together to go to. And a comment from Barbara Dillon, "Love Billy." And we close it off with Hamish Downey saying, "Congratulations, this is so wonderful. Ben did an excellent interview, plus asked the hard questions. Go, Ben, go."
Yay.
And that is our feedback.
And if you want to leave a comment, you can do that on our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, or at tggeeks.com, where you can comment on anything that we publish, as well as our YouTube episodes, where you can comment on the episodes. If you want to leave us a voicemail, that might be nice. You can call our listener feedback line, and we'll play that voicemail on air. Call 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. And as always, please play nice.
For more than 2 decades, Judy and Dennis Shepard have honored their son Matt by working to erase hate around the world. The Matthew Shepard Foundation honors his legacy by inspiring the good work of activists, teachers, artists, and legislators, and everyday LGBTQ+ folks and their allies. Join us today in helping to erase hate. Visit MatthewShepard.org.
Thank you to Comcast NBC Universal for that promo. We want to give a shout out to independent creators. Wherever you might find them, please support them, talk to them, talk to other people about their stuff, buy their stuff. Please consider supporting independent creators. If you are trans or are questioning your gender identity, and if you are in crisis or are feeling isolated and need someone to talk to, or you know of someone in a similar situation, there is a special hotline just for you. The hotline is provided by translifeline.org and staffed by trained counselors who are transgender themselves. The hotline in the U.S. is 877-565-8860. In Canada, it is 877-330-6366. Or you can go to translifeline.org to learn about the important work they are doing. Please reach out for help. You are not alone.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, you know. They're two gay guys and they're geeks. Is that okay?
And that was Marc Biagi that we talked about. He does all kinds of voices. We have several clips, but we use that one a lot.
Yeah, we need to rotate them.
Yeah, and we're going to skip right past the second segment and go right into this.
Yes, it's time for our weekly review. These are items that we ran on our website at tggeeks.com this past week, and the link for each of these items will be in the show notes for this episode article number 399 that you can find at tggeeks.com, starting with Sunday, October 2nd, Nerdy Chupacabras number 120. On Monday the 3rd, TG Geeks episode number 398. On Tuesday the 4th, Marvel releases new trailer and poster for Black Panther Wakanda Forever. On Wednesday the 5th, Reverie releases 15th anniversary edition of Another Gay Movie. On Thursday the 6th, MGM UA releases new trailer for Bones and All.
Creepy.
Creepy. On Friday the 7th, Hamish Downey's new Sushi number 132, Morsels of News from Japan and Beyond. And on Saturday the 8th, This God Made, hosted by Carlton Tetley, Season 4, Episode 3, Red Shetland. That was really silly.
It was.
We have some shout-outs that we need to make. First to Brian Weber, our good friend Arkle. He is on Twitter as Geek of All Trades. Geek is spelled the letter G, the number 3, the number 3, the letter K of all trades. Referred to as Brian the Ampersand List YouTuber, who has his Arkle Times Post Dispatch news, and we mention that because it republishes some of our content from time to time. Also, go to his YouTube channel. That would be youtube.com/Arkle Studios for the plethora of projects that Arkle has going on over there. We must also give some love to some Facebook groups for allowing us to post our episodes and relevant articles on their pages. First, Two Gay Geeks After Hours. Big thanks to the moderators for saying that we could share away our content there, and their address is facebook.com/groups/Gay Geeks After Hours, and then to The Gay Geek for the same thing, and their address is facebook.com/groups/The Gay Geek. And as always, we give special thanks to their moderator, Jeremiah Reeves.
Thank you, Jeremiah. We also want to give a special shout out right now to the San Diego WhoCon, which is coming up October 21st through 23rd, 2022, and Marc Biagi is going to be there. So please check that out. That's sdwhocon.com. Other places we can be found are Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Amazon Podcasts, as well as where other fine podcasts can be found. Can you tell I'm out of breath? Rushing through everything. Also, check us out on Sci-Fi Radio at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesdays. They're going to do a replay of this episode and listen to their other content. They are a 24-hour geeky internet radio station. They play some really great stuff. Please rate us and review us on iTunes, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for the webcast episode. We'll have several links, such as the Kickstarter link and the other clips from that Kickstarter for the Shadow Mark audiobook. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I'm Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. We want you to live and be your authentic self, no matter what the world tells you. Please be kind to yourself and those around you. Stay safe, wear a mask, get vaccinated. Peace.
Cheers.